This is Track Talk with commentary on another game of 1830, and we will jump right into the auction. First bid on the Camden and Amboy, followed by the M&H and the D&H. So pretty standard opening. Three most popular privates are with one player each, and will we see Mr. O'Santin join on the CNA? And he does. Highjammer now has an option to bid on the D&H or the M&H in an effort to prevent one of these players from orchestrating an early pull, and we'll see which he chooses. Looks like he'll be taking the D&H first. Drakic does have a open Mohawk and Hudson, so maybe looking to go on the Champlain and St. Lawrence and see if he can entice another player to pull. He will do just that, and Exerbot hopefully will be seeing the danger with that and preventing it. So now all the three main privates have two bids on them, and MRO Santin will be joining on this Champlain and St. Lawrence. We may just see a pull here. I'm always a little bit hesitant to be the third player on a private, but we'll see. He is happy to join on Mohawk and Hudson, and Dracic, as he is on a private with three players and also the kind of undesirable Champlain and St. Lawrence, may be a little bit disincentivized to pull here as a result, and is happy to join on the CNA. Exorbot does pull, so we will see MRO Santin and Dracic bidding out the Champlain and St. Lawrence. Dracic has two privates in addition to this, so probably not super motivated to bid this up. And MRO Santin is on the CNA. So similarly, probably not really hoping to win this, but we'll see if Dracic thinks it's worth one more bid. Looks like he does. Does MRO Santin pass here? He does. So Dracic has a private that he may not have really been hoping to win, and will be kind of stuck to try and get one of these other privates with three players on it to avoid the getting the B&O. Exorbot now, he's the player that pulled, and if he wins the D&H, will be safe from needing to get the B&O. He does have two opportunities here, so doesn't necessarily have to win the D&H, but is looking towards the Mohawk and Hudson with three players on it and thinking that, boy, it'd be nice to just pass right out of that. So may see him bid this up a little bit. And he is able to win that for a song, just $85. So he is looking pretty good coming out of this auction. Dracic, Exorbot, and Highjammer will be bidding on Mohawk and Hudson now. I expect Exorbot will be quickly passing out of this, so probably be between Highjammer and Dracic. Dracic, happy to bid, and Exorbot will bid as well. I imagine he is hoping that other players will overbid him here. He's not trying to leave the auction with the M&H, D&H, and the Schuylkill. Highjammer obliges and bids 140. Dracic staying in, and Exorbot, will he drop here? Looks like he does. So a little bit risky, probably not too risky, placing that bid on the Mohawk and Hudson. I imagine the other players are happy to continue on this. And actually, Highjammer passes, so Exorbot cut that a little bit close. Dracic wins with just 145, so pretty cheap M&H. All these privates have been going pretty low. That does make the Camden and Amboy a little bit more likely to go low as well, and we will see if that's the case. Highjammer and Mr. O'Santin both have no privates, so will be motivated to win this. And Highjammer brings it up to 180. Mr. O'Santin gonna kind of cut the intervening bids and just go up to right up to 210. Dracic probably will be passing here, and does. So these two players are left to fight it out, and Highjammer passes. I think that's a mistake. That's a very cheap Camden and Amboy. Does leave Mr. O'Santin the ability to par the PRR and also to par any company after just one operating round. So Highjammer will then be forced to buy the B&O, and does, and pars it at 100. Dracic, Exorbot, probably one of them will be hoping to take the PRR, so MRO Santin doesn't just par it right away, and we'll see which of them wants to. Dracic can kind of force the issue. Well, I guess I should say Dracic will be forced to float the PRR, as he doesn't have $402 if he wants to float on his own in this first stock round, which I imagine he does. So he will take the PRR. He is parring at above 67. So MRO Santin is getting an even better deal on this CNA, as the share that he gets from that private is worth a little bit more than it otherwise would be. XORBot has his choice of companies. Maybe looking at the CNO, that seems to be a pretty popular choice. Alternatively, could be taking the NYNH, or a little more riskily, the NYC. And does take the CNO as expected. MRO Santin probably just going to be sitting on cash, hoping to float in SR2. And actually will be taking a B&O share. So by doing this is going to put himself out of reach of floating at 402 in the next stock round, because this share is going to fall back if it does float. Maybe hoping to steal the B&O. Would have cash to do that, but Highjammer has enough to defend. So Highjammer may be happy for the help in floating, just buy up enough to defend the company and then invest the rest in paying shares. We'll see how that plays out. So he does buy in B&O, and the rest of the players are just buying their shares. And MRO Santin looking to press the issue a little bit on this B&O, force it to float. PRR player is probably a little bit unhappy to be seeing this, as technically the B&O can beat him to Lancaster if they choose to contest it. So when I'm the PRR, I usually hope that the B&O is not going to float in the same OR as me, same stock round. PRR is floated, CNO close to follow, and the B&O has already floated, so the rest of the players look like they may be just passing here. That does give MRO Santin priority into the next stock round, so he will be able to sell out of the B&O if he likes. But again, he's going to be losing $30 of net worth here as a result of this company falling back, so that will prevent him from floating without selling the PRR share. B&O, even though it has the opportunity to beat the PRR to Lancaster, may be expecting to be sold down and operating below this PRR company. However, the PRR, if the B&O is sold, PRR will almost guaranteed be sold as well, as the player owns shares in both those companies. So where I'm going with this is that the B&O could have raced to Lancaster and hoped to beat the PRR there. I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. Regardless, going south does token it, so we may see 3 2-trains bought here, which is, I think, a bad opening. And does buy 3 2-trains. He does not have priority on MR Santin, so we won't be looking at a dump here. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this opening. PRR probably racing to Lancaster, yep. So he will be able to assure himself the track there and potentially a token, and we'll be buying 1 2-train. This does leave the CNO player the ability to buy pretty easily into the 3s, and he does have the DNH, which is not the most high-value private in terms of buy-in, but is enough to net yourself a couple shares. So almost certainly we'll be buying into that and buying his private, which is what we'll see. This leaves the CNO with not a whole lot of cash, so XORBot may be happy to sell this down and start another company. He's probably hoping to sell it down and then pay out and retain his shares in stock round 3, but there is always a chance that someone takes this presidency from him if he sells it down enough. MRO Santin, expect him to be selling out of these companies, which he does. So, at the end of the day, he could have floated without having to invest in the B&O, would have been able to get his own company started regardless. So he is basically just now given Highjammer a company at a discount. So this company has $1,000 in his treasury regardless of who floats it. Highjammer only had to buy 3 of those shares instead of all 6. It does hurt his net worth a little bit in terms of the shares being sold, but Highjammer probably be happy to buy those cheap shares or just leave them in the market paying in his company and buy paying shares of the other companies. So not the way I would have done it. We'll see if it works out. Taking the NYNH, and Highjammer is going to be just buying paying shares in other companies. Jurassic Passing, XORBot. We'll see if he sells down or if he wants to buy these cheap B&O shares. Looks like he's going to be buying those. he does have the option of buying them, then taking it further and still selling down the C&O and floating. But the remaining companies are a little bit risky. You kind of want to see where the NYNH is going to lay its company or lay its track before floating that NYC. And then B&M, I'm just never really excited to start that company. Erie has a pretty slow start, and the CPR is no good, especially if you don't control the Champlain and St. Lawrence, which he doesn't. So maybe happy to just buy those market shares. Mr. O'Santon going to continue to float here. iChammer is happy to buy his own shares, and Jurassic continues to pass. Xorbot buying a NYNH. Highjammer is passing, Jurassic's passing. Xorbot does have the ability to buy a share here. Sorry, did not have the ability to buy a share because he's already capped on the C&O. So he's going to be sticking with the C&O. The unfortunate part with this strategy of investing your funds after a quick buy-in is that he's still going to be going pretty late in priority. He's going to be going second and last. So if the other players are able to start companies ahead of him in stock round 3, he's going to be left with one of the worst companies, most likely. So by foregoing floating in stock round 2, he may lose the opportunity to get the company he wants in stock round 3. MRO Santon has been getting some help from Highjammer and Xorbot, and as a result, doesn't necessarily need to buy any more shares in the NYNH, maybe looking to buy some paying shares in the C&O, for instance. He's going to pass and just sit on his cash. He's happy to maintain priority as a result. Oh, actually, sorry. He will be going second to last. So I misread priority there. Xorbot is not going second to last, he's going second to first. So he still has the opportunity to get a decent company in stock round 3. Jurassic is going first, but we'll need to buy in some privates in order to float another company. First operation from the NYNH, and is going to be laying friendly track to the B&M. This makes it a little bit rough starting the NYC. NYC can eventually develop good track, but will not have early easy runs. He will buy probably just 1-3 here, looks like it. And B&O happy that the trains are slowing down a little bit after having bought 3-2 trains. We'll see what he lays next. Looks like he's just going to be taking the safe route into Atlantic City and then eventually hoping to get into Philadelphia through there. Paying out well. And he will buy a second 3 train. So when you're running 3-2 trains, you kind of don't want the train rush to accelerate in any way, but you also are pretty vulnerable if you don't buy a 3 train here, so you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. PRR will be getting into Lancaster here. Does drop the token and will probably be buying a 3 train. And does. So this is what I'm saying. Because the B&O bought that extra 3 train, the 4 trains are now just a blink away. Maybe seeing the NYNH buying into the 4s if the C&O buys a 3 here. He doesn't have the money for it. I imagine he won't withhold for it. So the B&O may be seeing these 2 trains run into operating round 3. PR buys in his privates. There are 2 operating rounds in this set. Didn't have to do it here. Could have done it in the next operating round in order to get that revenue. We'll be running probably towards Chicago, and does, and then we'll be seeing the Akron tile in the next operating round. B&O running 4 trains, only has routes for 3 of them, and doesn't have any track it can really lay to get a 4th route. Well, actually that's not true. Could have upgraded Washington instead of Baltimore there to get a 4th route, but maybe hoping to lay tile into Lancaster from the west side, so upgrading Baltimore instead. PRR laying Pittsburgh and running its 2 trains. Has already bought in his privates, so that's interesting. He does buy another 3 train, and this will open up the 4s. I think the rest of the companies all have 3 trains, so it's not going to be the end of the world for them if the 2 trains rust. NYNH, upgrading New York, maybe hoping to get down into Reading and Allentown a little bit faster by doing this. Also not laying the B&M's track for it, hoping that the B&M will float and lay that $80 tile for it. CNO, as the twos do not rust, will be able to run 2 trains this time, and does lay that tight curve doubled it. Looking at this stock round, Jurassic has enough to float his next company, and so does MRO Santin. XORBot can, but will have to sell shares. So we'll see what Jurassic picks here. Selling his own company down for even more cash, which will allow him to float or par at 100. PRR does have 3 trains and reasonable track, so that may be an attractive company for someone to take over, as long as they're not too worried about the train rush really taking off. And he will take the B&M. So it's a high par, but that company only has 1 token, so I'm always a little bit leery of it. XORBot. Selling, looks like he will be floating as well. Probably take the Erie here. He actually takes the NYC. His other company is the CNO, so not a whole lot of strong synergy there. He could try and take advantage of this D&H, get in Scranton, and then work with the NYC there. I've been seeing that in a couple of games I've been spectating recently. It is a little risky. The CNO is already pretty tight on cash, and it will cost him $120 to do that. MRO Santin going to be left with the CPR of the Erie, so probably taking the Erie here, and does. And then Highjammer is left to buy some more shares. Buying his own market shares. There are a ton of companies that are going to be operating ahead of him unless he tanks shares. So I do not expect to see these 2 trains running again. That does mean that the B&O's revenue is going to be a little bit worse than it has been. He will be running before the PRR, however, so should be able to get into Lancaster. Theoretically, someone could tank the B&O down to operate after the PRR. PRR player may be looking to do that, but it would be quite expensive. Each of those shares is going to be at a $24 deficit, so probably won't see that. But when I play, I always worry about those things. Maybe I play too conservatively as a result. PRR, happy to continue floating the B&M. XORBot, going to be floating NYC, and we will see the Erie continue to be bought as well. Highjammer, buying his last market share, and the remainder of the players are floating. May see some shenanigans at the end here in terms of manipulating stock order or company order, but let's see. Looks like they're all just going to float, and none of them have sold down their shares. They will lose priority in order if they choose to sell down here, and it looks like they are happy to keep priority as it is. So Highjammer, since he didn't float his own company, will be going first in the next stock round. That does give him the option to start CPR, but he doesn't control this Champlain, so not a very attractive company. B&O does lay Providence, so smart move from the NYNH not laying that tile last time as he gets it free now. And will the B&M token it? Looks like he's going to pass that. Buys a 4 train, 2 trains are rusted, and leaves it at just 1 4 train. MRO Santin looks like he will be heading towards Rochester, and again buys a single 4 train. B&O, this is the first company to operate that had not floated in the last stock round, and will be, as a result, getting into Lancaster. So I think that I would have liked to see the B&O lay into Lancaster through this yellow tile, as opposed to upgrading the Philadelphia track. Reason being is that I imagine the PRR would be motivated to lay the track in the same orientation. It could, in theory, lay it with the second city going into New York, but that really is against its own best interest, and it doesn't hurt the B&O that much. So I don't think guaranteeing your run into Philadelphia here is worth losing out on Lancaster. And by laying this track here, he could guarantee an upgrade and token in Lancaster in the next operating round. So as it is, he may very well get tokened out of Lancaster by the CNO. So yeah, a little bit of unfortunate track there, I think. He does run to Philadelphia, so runs for a little bit more than he otherwise would be, but seems a little short-sighted. CNO probably be linking up with Pittsburgh, and is not tokening, probably hoping to upgrade Lancaster or just token in Lancaster if the PRR upgrades there. NYNH laying the sharp turn into Reading and Allentown, so as a result probably will be laying that tile. The alternative here is that Lancaster could be upgraded by PRR here, allowing the CNO to get in their token and then lay the Reading and Allentown track. That's not unreasonable. PRR may be willing to cooperate with CNO here, as that track, if it's laid into New York, would help both companies. Alternatively, if the PRR player wants to hurt the CNO, could upgrade Pittsburgh and force the CNO player to upgrade Lancaster for it. First operation in the NYC, now having the New Haven token or tile laid and this sharp tile, really has limited options in terms of early runs. Can't even lay a sharp turn to get into New Haven. So we may see it laying a city towards this yellow tile, hoping to get the upgrade with a straight, but it won't even get a run doing that. So I'll be curious to see how he plays this, but this is a rough position for the NYC. He actually passes, so maybe just shuffling money and suitcasing this company for a while. But he's going to fall even further behind in terms of track development, and the suitcase is not at all secure. It gets very easy to break this, so not a long-term strategy for him. He buys no trains. So he did have the option of buying the 4, shuffling money into the CNO and then hoping to pick up a 5. Only 2 companies have money for 5s, so sorry, it's the Erie and the B&M. So he probably would have ended up with a 5 there, but he would have very little money for his second permanent if he does that. So he's just going to sit on the NYC. He has 6 shares invested in this company, so that is kind of rough to not be making any revenue in the second operating round off of that investment. We'll see how that works out. PRR, again, has a decision here to upgrade either Pittsburgh or Lancaster. Could also upgrade the tile to run into Baltimore just for the revenue. I would not like to see that. I'm not a fan of that play, but we'll see what he upgrades. So it does do that. We'll be running both of his 3 trains as a result. But again, this player only has 20% of the company paying into him. So does he really care about the revenue, in this early stage? I think you got to be looking more long-term and hoping to cooperate with the CNO to get in the Reading Allentown. Unfortunately, does not do that and does withhold here. B&M maybe upgrading Boston just to increase its run. And that's what we'll see. B&O probably see a lay into Lancaster here, and actually neglects the token. Yeah, not a fan of that. I think you have to defend that run. Erie, first operation from it, will be just running for 60. Doesn't have to token Rochester as there's no competition right now. May eventually see the Erie token that though. NYNH, against all odds, is able to lay the Reading and Allentown and also can token Lancaster. So this is great for the NYNH player. I think several players have to misplay for this to come about. Very kind of unusual. So the NYNH is happy to lock down Lancaster, and as a result could very well have runs into both North and South New York. This gives this player a huge advantage. So just looking at the game state, he is second in share density, but functionally first because 6 of XORBot's shares are, doing nothing for him, and has excellent map position. The Erie is always kind of a questionable company, but with a late start on the NYC, maybe able to get some good track. And in terms of net worth, tied for second and only slightly behind the B&O player. So MRO Santin is looking pretty good here. He does have to worry a little bit about permanent train money, but so does basically everybody else in the game. So at least no worse than other players. C&O kicking itself that the other players have allowed this to happen, and as a result will not be getting into Lancaster or into New York. May just see a Pittsburgh upgrade and hope to get into the double O's through there. PRR running 3 trains and is able to reach New York with one of them, so we'll be running pretty hot here. And does he withhold again? He does, so now he's in the yellow, has some cheaper shares. He has a little bit of money, but not quite enough to buy all these yellow shares. So maybe seeing him sell down a few B&M shares, that company is a lot less attractive, and just hoping to hoover up some of these PRR shares. But the other players are going to see these attractive shares as well, and we'll be buying them as well. NYC does lay track now, probably hoping to get that straight tile upgrade, but again is in a pretty rough spot. We'll buy a 4 here, I assume. This opens up the 5s, and we will have probably a lot of turn order manipulation to see if players can get those 5s into their companies. Highjammer, B&O player, starting us out, doesn't have enough money to float without selling, and the Burlington tile has remained unlaid. So if the 5 trains break before the PRR operates, which is almost certain, it does make sense to float the CPR as a suitcase. So may see that happen. Instead, just buying those juicy PRR shares, and Jurassic will be buying one of his own, XORBot, selling out of the C&O, recognizing he's in quite a bit of danger with the NYC having no track and the C&O being tokened out of Lancaster, and it looks like he will be hoping to buy the CPR and get 2 5 trains as a result. B&M, and a quick dump of the B&M, so Jurassic may be losing out on a 5 train if he allows his company to operate after both the CPR and the Erie, but XORBot was actually not able to par the CPR for 100, which I missed, so he will not be able to afford both 5 trains as a result. Highjammer buying still cheap market shares as a result of that float and that kind of random trashing of shares. There are still PRR shares available for Jurassic to buy. And he actually passes. That is a strange move to me. The PRR has great track, is a healthy company in terms of cash, and he only has $47, so what other shares is he going to be buying? I would sell down a B&M here and buy that PRR for sure. XORBot presumably continuing floating the CPR. And MR Santin, does he pick up a PRR share before Highjammer steals his company? Looks like he does. Highjammer still has the opportunity to steal it, just will have to buy an IPO share instead. And he does. So that is very strange decision making from Jurassic. XORBot continuing to float, not quite. So he's going to manipulate turn order a little bit by tanking the Erie, it looks like. That is not a insurmountable action. MRO Santin could sell down the CPR, but he will have to sell out of the NYNH to do it, or sell that PRR share that he just picked up. So XORBot, probably seeing that, feels comfortable manipulating turn order. kind of waited a little bit to do that for MRO Santin to invest. So MRO Santin is going to be unable to, prevent the CPR from operating before the Erie, maybe hoping another player will do his dirty work for him. We'll see if they oblige. Highjammer buying a CNO, and the rest of the players will have to pass unless they sell. So XR Bot's going to be allowed to float the CPR without intervention. Looks like he's going to be doing a little stock trashing of his own, or maybe just buying the cheap IPO shares for a couple extra bucks. So Jurassic has sold out of the PRR and is buying Erie as a result. I don't know about this. You're putting all these brown shares in the market now. Other players are going to be happy to buy up those cheap shares. Again, the PRR has basically private train money or permanent train money and has good track. So I don't see why you're trading your shares for the Erie shares. And maybe a little more stock trashing. So players are potentially anticipating a bankruptcy and are just trying to lower their opponent's net worths as a result. Yep, so we will see these cheap PRR shares being bought up now. Interesting. I would have expected him to buy all three of those, but we'll just buy one. Does he not realize that he can buy more than one when it's in the brown? It looks like he's happy to buy them. He's just buying them one at a time. I guess he doesn't know that. Maybe it's a newer player. I mean, his decision making with the B&O has not been great, so maybe he is new. And after a lot of stock trashing, XOrbot will be floating his company. He, as we mentioned, is unable to float for 900, so won't be able to buy both of the 5 trains, even though he'll be operating first after trashing everybody's stock. And now Jurassic maybe will undo a lot of his hard work by dumping one share and knocking him back one place on the market. We'll see if he actually does it. He does. So all that turn order manipulation will end up being for nothing. XOrbot does have the opportunity to maintain priority here because Jurassic kind of waited until the company had floated to do this. And let's see. So he does keep priority. So not the end of the world for him. He'll still be able to get a 5 trainer, should be able to, and has priority. Erie here laying towards the NYC, so this is helping the NYC a little bit. Erie may be looking to token that Rochester in the near future to prevent the NYC from cutting its run in half. And we'll be picking up the first 5 train here. CNO has access to Browns, but can't unfortunately upgrade Philadelphia as it has been tokened out. So maybe just linking up with the 00 at Dunkirk. Does have tokens available to it, but needs to be a little bit careful that it doesn't run out of money for these permanent trains, which are coming down the horizon. B&O train locked and does have access to the Philadelphia brown tile, so we'll probably be laying it so that it can run into New York, which is what happens. Running 2 trains and may be looking to withhold as it has no permanent trains. The PRR does have cash for a permanent train if it's able to get a 5, but he needs to make sure that the B&O is covered as well. Jurassic will be picking up a 5 and potentially upgrading and tokening New York. So I guess it doesn't feel much danger from the PRR. PRR does have tokens available to it, so could be seeing a upgrade, withhold, token, and buy a 5 if there are available 5s. does buy a 5 in the B&M. There's one left, and that will be picked up by the CPR almost certainly. NYNH now. We'll see what he wants to do with this. May just see a New York upgrade to increase its revenue. Instead upgrades Lancaster. And does not have 5 train money, but pays out. NYC now has the option to upgrade to get a run into Boston, but may want to look towards the yellow track west of it in order to hopefully get the 42 tile there eventually to secure a run into New York. And looks like that's where he's heading with that. NYNH can prevent this with a different brown upgrade, but may also like to have its options open into Albany. Have to imagine that the B&M is looking at tokening Albany if it didn't token in New York. So the NYNH may want to prevent the NYC from getting into New York. PRR does have a fair amount of cash in the money in the company, but unfortunately all the 5 trains are bought and he would have been train locked anyways, so probably will be looking to pay out here. Running for a fair amount of cash and actually withholds, so he is just a little bit nervous about the possibility of needing a 6 and a D. The CPR, as it did not buy any trains, does have money to bring out the 6s. Will be rusting his own C&O 3 train, but since the CPR doesn't need a train, can just buy it over. When that 6 comes out, it will rust the trains for the PRR, who can buy the second 6, and then nobody has money to bring out the D train for a while. So not the end of the world for any of these players, and there will be a little bit of withholding that needs to be done to bring out that D train. C&O upgrading the 00 tile, and will he drop a token there? Not yet. B&O still has 2 trains and somehow has ended up with a token in New York. That is like a worthless token. I don't really know about that. I mean, you can run a train from it, but it's not going to block anyone. The NYNH and PRR can both upgrade the yellow tile here and get a run into New York through here and drop a token on Philadelphia to cut the B&O's track in half. So kind of low yield token there. Is running for a lot of money and pays it out. He's withholding on his other companies, so happy to pay out here. MRO Santon, will he be laying towards Albany? Looks like he's hoping to bypass Albany, or I guess just give it an easy link up without needing to upgrade. Not sure why he's playing so friendly with Albany here. And will he be tokening Rochester now that he's put it within 1 track lay of the NYC? He does, so at least defending himself. B&M, do we see a New York upgrade or an Albany upgrade? Albany, and then we'll have to token there. So NYNH should be cutting out the NYC and B&M from running into New York here. He has no reason to be going to Albany. It's, a dead end for him. So I would love to see him lay some track here that prevents them from running into New York North. Instead of upgrading Providence, which really is a meaningless upgrade, and will be paying out. CPR probably buying the 6 here and not building itself track. So we'll see that 6 train end up in the C&O almost certainly. NYC will be laying that tile we pointed out earlier in order to get into New York. Really big missed opportunity from the NYNH there, I think. He's pretty close to 6 train money, but couldn't get there with just 1 withhold. May see some train shuffling to try and get that second 6 train as well. PRR trainless. Doesn't have enough money for the upgrade either, so we'll just be buying that 6 train. Next stock round, so looking at the game state, MRO Santon leads in net worth. Also, well, actually, Highjammer is ahead in shares as a result of his brown shares. MRO Santon has 1 permanent train and is close to $400 in companies, so is on the hook for a D train. And Xorbot has 2 permanent trains and 2 companies that need permanent trains. Does have runs for the C&O still with that 4 train. Highjammer, just the 1 permanent train, and Jurassic also, he has 2 permanent trains. So the train rush here is not necessarily going to determine who is taking this game. I think that it will probably be, the long-term track potential for these companies. Unlikely to see bankruptcy. He is selling down his suitcase and will be investing in paying shares, and is buying the B&M. Does have 2 trains, does have 2 routes for those trains as a result of the NY&H allowing this tile. So we'll be running pretty hot at least until that D train comes out, which will be probably for a while. And buying the C&O. There is a lot of money to be made, putting these shares into the market, but the market's full, so you're not going to be able to sell that down. And this is a company with no cash and no permanent trains, so not the best investment, I wouldn't say. Highjammer buying C&O as well, so this opens up MRO Santon to a dump, which may very well happen. Jurassic buying at NYC, and we'll see if there's a dump. Looks like he's going to defend the company, actually. I don't see why. Doesn't have any track, in the east. Could token the 00 to secure that, but I mean, there are other ways to make money in this game. MRO Santon buying NYC. Highjammer investing in his own company. B&O has, pretty poor track and no way to defend its run if the PRR or C&O elect to come down here. So this company does not seem like a good investment either. Highjammer buying the Erie, and Jurassic buying C&O. So these players are putting a lot of value on these C&O shares. Not entirely sure why. Are any of them looking to trash its value? It's ledged, so not going to be doing that either. A little bit confused. Xorbot buying B&M. Again, these shares are going to be running pretty hot. And NYC, again, a company with 2 trains, 2 permanent trains even, so pretty valuable shares. B&M, Erie, NYC. I forgot that he wasn't maxed on shares there. It's a nice pickup from him. MRO Santon passing. Highjammer continuing to buy shares, maintaining his share lead. And the Erie is sold out. Jurassic happy to pass. Xorbot buying his last share. So MRO Santon is a little bit upset because he, even though was passing, will not be able to maintain priority as Highjammer is continuing to buy shares. And Highjammer is buying his final PRR share. To me, that's not the best share to buy. I would leave that unbought because now you have a brown company that's going to be floating up. It's only a 10% part of its revenue, not really worth the extra withholds that's going to cause you down the road. And Jurassic will be leaving with priority as a result of Highjammer buying shares till the end. In terms of share count, he does have a pretty good lead on MRO Santon and Xorbot. Jurassic is in rough shape with only 10 shares. We will see when this D train is able to be brought out. Erie upgrading the Hamilton-Toronto. This does leave a number of other companies, so the B&O, the PRR, the NYNH, and the C&O to lay the brown track for this company and also potentially leave a token there, at least for some of the companies. So a little bit risky laying that green track. He is withholding, so maybe looking towards bringing out that D train sooner than later. MRO Santon is the player that is also running the NYNH, so he needs a permanent train. C&O, no money for a token, and we'll be upgrading the 00. This is a nice upgrade for Erie if they're able to get the tight curve here, can run through all of these 00 cities. Similarly withholding, B&O has no tokens as a result of this token lay on New York City. And interestingly, we'll be laying towards the north, so kind of preventing this quick loop around. It doesn't prevent it forever. There is a brown tile that can correct this for the Erie, but no guarantee it gets laid. B&M now, upgrading New York and running its 2 trains for a good amount of money. NYNH laying the track that the Erie is going to want to upgrade to that brown tile to complete its run. And does he withhold here? He is withholding. So both of his companies have withheld, putting him pretty close to permanent train money. If he buys trains over, he will have just $700. So not quite enough for an upgrade. And as a result, does not buy his trains over. NYC running 2 trains and has a fair amount of money in the company. Could be looking at a withhold and trying to race to an upgrade with the C&O. He links up with Rochester and will be running 2 trains quite well. Does drop a token in New York, which will make it a little bit harder for him to get the upgrade by shuffling trains around, but he just pays it out anyways. CPR has a bit of cash in the company, but probably will not be shuffling or laying track. PRR, final company in the operating round, and he is laying so that he can get into New York. Does he drop a token there, or does he drop a token on the 00 here? Dropping a token on the 00 doesn't guarantee his run, as the Erie does have permanent train money. So may see a token on Philadelphia, and that is exactly what we see. Interestingly, I don't get this token either. Why wouldn't you token this one? The NYNH is not going to be tokening you out here, and the B&O's run is now preserved. So is he a big investor? Oh, I see. So I missed this. He owns both the B&O and the PRR. So he's hurting the NYNH and helping the B&O. Okay, so reasonable. I missed that he was running both those companies. And he paid it out. So who is looking to bring this D train out first? NYNH and Erie are pretty close, and they should be able to do this before the NYC player is able to shuffle all these 3 companies' treasuries into one for the upgrade. So imagine MRO Santon will be ending up with a D train. Maybe withholding on the Erie, buying the train out of the NYNH, and then getting the D in the NYNH. As a result of this token, his D run is a little bit worse than it would otherwise have been. But he can run to the west and get into these 00 cities, so really not the end of the world for him. B&O, dead set on heading north through these 00 cities. Maybe seeing the last run of the 4 trains here, so hopefully the B&M is able to make it worth it. Erie, does he withhold here? So he gets that brown track that he was hoping for. Maybe withholding here and then shuffling trains to bring out the D in the NYNH. does withhold. Probably would have had money to token here and block the other companies from these nice double O's, and also still shuffle trains get the D. So a little bit surprised we're not seeing that. 361 and 563. That would be more than $800 even with the token lay. So I probably would have done that. CNO upgrades Pittsburgh and does token. So the Erie is a little bit upset by this. This does mess up his run through the double O cities a little bit. I guess the reason we didn't see a token here is because he, well, did he not have the ability to token there after that track lay? He should have, right? He could have just run through this and had access to this. So I think that's a missed opportunity. Would have liked to see that token from the Erie. Did he even shuffle his trains? He did. Okay, so we will see the D train, just missing the token. And CNO is withholding, but not able to shuffle trains. So he will have money for the D train, but will have to be getting that after the upgrade. Upgrading Boston just to increase its run and running its 2 permanent trains for quite a lot. NYNH now has the money for the upgrade and will be completing track into Barrie. D train is rusted, or the 4 trains are rusted. This leaves Highjammer in a rough spot as he has not been really withholding to afford this train at all. CPR continuing to just fall back. PRR last operation in the operating set. Upgrading Barrie and just paying it out. So B&O now on the hook for a D train and will unfortunately have to sell a share. So he has a ton of cash from paying out, but still has to sell a share. Sells the CNO and buys the D. So the B&O's D train has a pretty good run, but I worry about his decision making. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back from where he is now. XORBot with 3 companies and still will have to shuffle trains in order to afford a D. He actually doesn't have enough money to do it with just company money. So maybe just buying the 6 over and sitting on his cash and getting the D train later. B&M running 1 train as a result of the D coming out. Erie probably looking to bypass Albany and hopefully get this yellow upgrade down the road. NYC could block it and does. So that's the end of the ambitions of the Erie. CNO now going to be forced to probably buy one of the NYC trains. And does. So the NYC has almost $700 and could get a little bit more from the CPR if he wants to start running that. Does he have priority? No. So the CPR will be falling back again into brown, so it's not going to want to have a train in that for the next stock round, or else the company will be stolen. A nice D run from the NYNH, and that run should be pretty safe. Erie, as a result of this token, can't token here for the foreseeable future, and I don't think the other companies have tokens anymore. CNO does, but really doesn't have money to lay it. PRR, will he withhold to remain in the brown, or will he pay out? I think you have enough shares over the 6 limit that you probably want to withhold here. And he pays out. He can't sell a single share to fall back down into the orange, but why do that if you could just withhold one time? So at the end of that D-train feeding frenzy, XORBot is in a very narrow lead of net worth, and Highjammer is leading in shares. So he has met all of his train obligations and has reasonable track remaining to him. Maybe seeing him take this game as a result of his share density. But it really depends if he has the wherewithal to buy good shares in the stock round. Jurassic taking a B&O, does have a D train and a route for it, so reasonable purchase. XOrbot buying his CPR, so he's going to be looking to run this company moving out from here. He does have almost D train money for it. MRO Santon jumping on the D of the B&O. And Highjammer is forced to sell PRR as we noted, and presumably will be buying a D share from the B&O. Does. We see the B&O on the way to selling out. And now MRO Santon picks up the orange share. Highjammer picking up a NYNH share, again running pretty well with the D train. And we'll see the other players prioritizing that company as well. MRO Santon able to secure the last share of his company. Now the B&M. C&O. C&O doesn't have a whole lot of potential in this game. Could pick a D up. Could pick a D train in this company and just get the 5 in the CPR. But the CPR is going to have a pretty easy time of getting into these 00 cities as a result of this track lay. So could run it with either company, really. I guess the C&O would be a little bit better, probably. XOrbot buying his own shares. And everybody is anticipating the C&O shortly having a D train. The only person that's close to their cert limit is MRO Santon, so everybody's going to be happy to buy all the shares that are remaining. You do take a big hit with the CPR shares, but you will pay that back. The bank is very healthy, so we're looking at least 2 more operating rounds. Would have liked to see Jurassic buy some of these CPR shares instead of letting XOrbot buy all of them up, but looks like that's not going to be the case. So every share in the game is bought now, and we will be going into the next OR. The player with priority is MRO Santon. Is there anything that makes sense to dump in this game? So there are plenty of players that could be dumped on. The problem is that you're going to start running out of things to buy with 2 companies in the yellow or orange. So if Highjammer pays out enough to get out of the yellow, may see MRO Santon dumping a company as he's going to be over his certificate limit. B&M working on getting up to the CPR. Not entirely sure why. I mean, he has the money to burn, I guess, but the CPR is going to be laying its own track. He has telegraphed that by buying his own shares, so really doesn't have to pay money to break this suitcase. B&O helping the CPR get into the game. I assume these players realize that XOrbot is happy to run this company now. He's not really trying to suitcase it anymore. So they're really just laying its track for him. NYC, do we see a withhold here? So interestingly, he is blocking the CPR out. I was really confident that he wanted to run this company, so I'm a little surprised to see this. And he's paying out. NYNH getting very close to linking the CPR in. And the C&O has no cash, so will not be able to link the CPR in if that was his goal, but would be probably happy for other players to do it. A little confused by this Burlington lay. I am assuming that he wants to run the CPR, so why not give it the extra revenue by getting into Albany? Upgrading Ottawa. and withholding. May see a train shuffle from the NYC in order to give it D-train money. Instead, just sitting on its train. PRR, going to start working west towards Chicago, and it does pay out. Does this bring it out of the yellow? Not quite. So may see it withhold once to remain yellow. So the CPR could have linked itself into that paying track, but is probably noticing that the other players are happy to help, so withholding that cash for a token down the road. B&O working towards Chicago as well. Erie links the CPR up. It would be great for the other players if they are able to prevent the CPR from running west into Ottawa and into these double O's. But XORBot is going to be operating next, so probably is going to be able to help the CPR get west. So there is a brown tile that is possible delay to get the CPR. There's several brown tiles that can get the CPR west, so not in any danger here. He pays out, and we will probably be seeing the CPR buying this NYC train and letting the NYC run the D. NYNH getting itself a run into New York, bypassing that PRR token and increasing its D-train run as a result. CNO laying a upgrade that allows the CPR to run west, also allows the NYC to run west and make a big loop, so that NYC will be running pretty hot. CNO withholds. Does he shuffle a train out of the NYC? He does, and then we will see one of these trains making its way down into the CPR. PRR, question is whether or not this company remains in the yellow and is going to withhold, guaranteeing it remains in the yellow. Since he's not in orange anymore, he will have to sell down 2 shares unless he withholds again. And the market will be breaking not in this set of ORs but in the next, so maybe just want to be starting to pay out as the game end is rapidly approaching. CPR will be buying a train from the CNO, and also tokens that double O, so that really hurts these other players' D runs. It also hurts the NYC though, which will be running a D train and was hoping to run through these double O's. So, I mean, that's an interesting question, whether or not it helps you or hurts you to lay that token. If you have heavy investments in the other players' companies, the B&O and the NYNH in particular, then probably not laying that token is to your benefit. So he has a total of 9 shares, 2 in the NYNH, 1 in the B&O, and 6 in the NYC that we're hoping to take advantage of this track. Compared to MRO Santon having 5, 6, and 8. So, you know, just looking at those 2 players, it actually hurts XORBot a little bit more than it hurts MRO Santon to lay that token. B&M. B&M is kind of done in this game, just going to be running his 5 train. B&O has to find a new route now that that token is dropped, and we'll probably be working down into the offboards. Erie, going to be linking up these 2 tracks, which is just bypassing Rochester, so it really doesn't help him, but maybe increases his revenue just minorly. NYC will be paying just a few bucks for a D train here. And now all the companies have all the trains they will need. NYNH, just like the B&O, its track was hurt a little bit by that token, but still running pretty healthily at 450. XORBot running the CNO, and will be helping the other companies get into Chicago. PRR, will he stay yellow? He withholds and will be orange as a result. So he played that correctly and will be holding all of his shares. First run of the CPR in the game, and paying out 260, so not too shabby, especially when you own 80% of the company. Stock round 7, there are no dumps that are lined up and no shares available to buy, so it should be very quick. And we are entering, as a result, the last set of operating rounds. So going into this last set of operating rounds, $5,000 in the bank. Bank should definitely break. The net worth leader is High Jammer. He's not super far ahead, and he probably will be running for, well, he did have to withhold with a PRR, so he's going to be running for more than the other players, and he's already ahead. May see him just take it. I don't think there's too much interesting track development left to look at. The only tokens are in the PRR and the ERI. Well, there's a fair number of tokens, but the companies don't have enough cash to lay them. So the only company with cash to lay its token is the PRR. Is there an interesting spot for it to lay it that would change the game state? Not really. Could lay here to hurt the NYNH, prevent it from running its D train down into Baltimore and through New York. But I'm not sure that the NYNH is trying to run that track anyways. It may be just running into Chicago. I haven't done the math of those two routes. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of interesting tokening to go on. Probably these players are not incentivized to withhold very much, anticipating a bank break. The NYC and XORBot may be hoping to get into Pittsburgh here, bypassing the token of the CPR. This will open up track potentially for other players as well, but that would extend the route of the NYC. Really only has himself to blame for this token though, so kind of ironic that he's now working to bypass it. B&M, laying kind of irrelevant track. B&O does have a route into Chicago now, doesn't have enough money for much else, and is able to increase its run by $40. This is the player that's in the lead, so every buck kind of counts, so to speak. Maybe able to just kind of eke its way into a victory. Does High Jammer still have the share lead? He does. He's actually tied with XORBot though. XORBot's kind of far behind though, so with tied shares may not be enough to catch up. MRO Santon, the Erie, doesn't really have a whole lot going for it. NYC, still working on getting into Pittsburgh and paying out. NYNH looking to block that, sees the potential for the NYC to increase its run. And it looks like he has determined that running into Baltimore through New York is more profitable than running down into Chicago. So a token from the PRR will hurt the NYNH. CNO now looking to get into Chicago from the north potentially. Probably just laying track that it hopes the NYC will be able to take advantage of. PRR does not lay a token and is withholding. So here we may see some, kind of Hail Mary type plays in terms of withholding and getting another D train. But I think this player just wins the game if the bank breaks. So I don't know that buying a train and potentially extending the game is really in his best interest. He does do the exchange, so has a better train. But as a result of that, the bank may not break. $3,000 in the bank, it should still break. XORBot still working on getting to the west coast, or not the west coast, the west side of the map for the NYC. So with that withhold from the PRR, he's running for less than XORBot and MRO Santin, only $300 ahead of MRO Santin. So if he pays out, should be able to keep his lead, but kind of strange that he's withholding. I guess maybe he's just not worried, thinks he's far enough ahead. Erie, not sure where he's going. I think in the late game, people tend to just lay track to lay track. There's not always necessarily a overarching reason for it. NYC doesn't have money to continue heading west. CNO also doesn't have money to cooperate. I was just kind of watching if XORBot was able to get into Chicago or not, but it looks like he won't be able to. PRR no longer has cash for the token, so won't be seeing that, and hopefully we'll just be seeing him pay out. No sense in withholding now. Market has $900 left, so this will be the last operating round. And if we look, Highjammer is running for more than everybody else and is a fair ways ahead of everyone, so should be seeing him take the game. As a result, I think we can feel secure in just skipping to the end. Highjammer does take it. So I criticize this player for some of his decision making with the B&O track and tokens, but he is able to take the win. Shows what I know, I guess. Well played to Highjammer, and ended up being a fairly close game. I think that if this game continues into more sets of ORs, these players are not going to be able to hold all of their yellow and orange shares, and we would potentially see a shakeup and potentially a different, order and winner. But that's not the case, and Highjammer takes it. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with more.